Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It is December 9th, 2022. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. We'll then have everybody put their 30-second introductions into the chat window. For those people that are here in person, they will be able to give their 30-second introductions. We'll then go to committee reports. We're about workshop, job fairs, practice interview team, the interview success workshop, and the career tip of the week. And then we'll have our main event, which is the one-page bio, and that'll be around the top of the hour. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you're welcome to open the Zoom chat window. That's also where you can put in your 30-second introductions. And if you want to do that, you're welcome to go ahead and get that started now. For those watching on Facebook, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just enter your questions into the chat window. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, let's see here, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We've been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader of the group got a job. In 2008, I started a website. I found a need. I saw a need for some place to put everything people needed to know about their job search in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in one place. So I started a website, careerdfw.org. In 2012, I launched the second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me in person, I always have copies with me. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You'll hear more about that in just a moment. Well, we'd like to start the meeting off with good news. Do we have any landings out there? Any landings? I will share. I had one person contact me, say that she's gotten one job offer. She's supposed to get a second job offer today and had another interview for a third possibility. So she said, don't announce anything yet. By next Friday, I will pick one of the three. So we will definitely have a landing next week to talk about. So anybody else? All right, we'll move on here. Okay, what we'd like everybody to do now is please enter your 30-second introductions into the chat window. We'd like to know your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, the positions you're looking for, comma, and then 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. I will use this for a couple of things. Number one, I'll use this to update the roster. I've had a few people in the last couple of weeks who were gone for the last 90, who were missing for the last 90 days, who I sent an email to going, you know, we've moved you to the inactive list. And they went, well, I was there like a month ago. And I said, well, if you don't put something in the chat window, I don't know you're there. So that's how I use to update the roster. Also, I will put this out into an email this afternoon. And the object of this is to try to help everybody else who's on the list. So this way you can look over and see, do you know somebody who works at one of these other companies? Take a look at that email when it comes out this afternoon and see how you can help somebody else. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. All right, you've got plenty of time. Go ahead and if you're still typing, type away and just put your information in to see how, you know, we can help everybody who's out there. All right, what we're going to do now is we'll let the people who are here in person give their 30-second introduction. So give me just 1 second here. Let me move a couple things around the screen. And we'll do this. Do this. So let me go hand my mic off. Hold on.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Archery. I'm a retail specialist specializing in merchandising, management, collaboration. My companies I'm targeting are Acosta, Vantage Solution, and the federal government. My name is Anthony Archery. Everyone have a great day.
All righty. And we'll hear from Walt in just a second here. All right, let me do this. Okay, we're back in the right place. All right, yeah, we'd love to have you come in person. I mean, I know it's all the holidays here, but for 2023, we're really going to encourage everybody to please come. There's plenty of room here to spread out if you don't want to sit too close to people. Come get out of the house, put on some pants, and come visit us, okay? Just get out of the house if you live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you know somebody, well, I'll just talk about two totally free websites that are out there. There's careerdfw.org and careerusa.org, both sites totally free. They don't collect any personal information. They're just there to help you. One of the things you'll find on the Career DFW website is a bunch of calendars. And on the calendars, there's all sorts of career fairs, training workshops, all the free events that are meeting. If there's Zoom links, if anybody is trying to find a Zoom link and you're trying to find something, all the blue events you see there, those are events that are happening in person. The purple are webinars that are happening online. Pink are job fairs. All the gold are special workshops that are happening. So please check out the calendar. If you're trying to find a link, you're trying to find something to do that day. As you can see on the calendar, there's something going on every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. So there's something to do all the time. All right, let me talk a little bit about the practice interview team, the Dallas Pit Crew. Remember, your resume and your LinkedIn profile is not going to get you a job. It'll get you a phone call. How well you practice your interviewing skills, that's what's going to get you your next job. The Dallas Pit Crew is totally free. They don't charge anything. It is done online at Current. They're talking about next year going back and meeting in person on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock for those in the DFW area, but they can still, for those who live outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they can still do interviews remotely. The motto is practice early, practice often. Don't wait until you have an interview and call them up and go, I got an interview on Wednesday. I need to get something scheduled in the next 2 days. That's not going to happen. Practice early. Just find a job description online. Find that perfect job description that you'd like, even if you haven't applied, you don't have to apply for it. And just go, I want to practice with this. Send in a resume, send in your job description, let them know what your schedule is 2 to 4 days out, and they will schedule an interview. It's always a panel interview. They've got like 30 different hiring managers who are there to help you, who will go and pick interviews that they want to do. When I've been on the panel, I always find people who are usually in manufacturing or shipping, warehousing, those kinds of jobs. I'm not going to do a scientific one because that's not my background. So the crew will go and give you a really good interview. So just send your information into dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. If you want more information, you can go to dallaspitcrew.com and it'll take you to a link on the Career DFW website or a page there that gives you all the details as far as what it is they do and how they can help. If you'd like to schedule a one-way interview, I'm actually hearing that there's some problems with the system right now. So let me just skip over that field and we won't even show it today. Let's talk to Walt Glass, who leads the Interview Success Workshop. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning, everyone. What is the Interview Success Workshop and how does that compare? It's free as well as the Pit Crew, but it really focuses on how we sell ourselves, defined as who we are, what we do, and how we can help. It also emphasizes differentiation because people who interview candidates hear the same thing over and over. And so how can we avoid that and show difference in a very positive way? You see a QR code on the screen, and that'll start an email because you need to be registered to attend. You can see my Walt Glass, walt_glass@yahoo.com as my reserved email address for the workshop. And just ask for registration and I'll give you some dates and we'll get you scheduled. It's very informal. We're going to cover basic questions. It's choppy because we're looking at different questions, the motives behind them, options, strategies, structures, and ways that we might answer them. It all depends on the question, who's asking, and where you are in the process. But we have a fun time. It's just a learning time. I call it learning without squirming. Is job search putting you to the test? In interviews, do you appear like all the rest? It's learning how to sell and differentiate that I suggest it can make you put above all the rest. And in this season, may you all be blessed.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. All right, it's time to hear the career tip of the week. This is sort of an odd tip. I know this is going to be a long one here. There's a lot of really good information here. It's really sort of interesting. So good morning, Rosanna. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for reading the tip today.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. All right. Well, in the interest of time, and like Jeff said, this is a long one, I'm just going to read the 18 different red flags. But this week's tip is dated December the 4th, and it's 18 red flags you should be looking out for when interviewing. If you're looking for a new job, here are 18 red flags you should be looking out for when interviewing. I think that you can all agree that getting a new job is usually exciting, but sometimes in our rush to get a job and start as soon as possible, we miss signs that maybe this isn't the ideal place to work. And recently, Reddit user was curious about just what they just said. What are some workplace red flags that scream, "Don't work here"? Thousands of people replied, and with the red flags they look out for, here are some of the top voted and best answers. Number one, if everyone you meet has been working there less than 2 years, and this isn't a startup, it's a red flag. Number two, work hard, play hard. You won't have a life outside the office, but we'll pump you up full of booze. Number three, everyone you've interviewed with has left by the time you start. That's definitely a red flag. Number four, if a larger company buys your company out, but says nothing is changing but the name and the address that your paycheck is coming from, but then everything changes. Number five, hearing things like, "We're like a family," or "Be willing to work in a fast-paced environment." This is just code for, "We will guilt you into doing things beyond your job, and we are poorly managed." Number six, the owner's children are in high management and executive positions. Number seven, if there are some very, very new workers and a group that has been there from the start, then just know you're going to be treated like something by the ladder. Number eight, if all of the other employees look sullen and depressed, if you walk into the office area and feel like you've walked into a funeral service, nobody's smiling, nobody's laughing, nobody's looking remotely happy or content, just turn around and walk back to your car. This is not a good place to work. Number nine, if you ever hear a higher up saying along the lines of, I don't have to do that because I am an X. Number 10, oh man, I feel like my workplace is filled with red flags. Like tonight, for example, we had a 16-year-old get fired for being drunk while on the job and unable to function. They fired the kid about a month ago. I showed up today, and that same kid who they fired got his job back and was at work tonight. It's sad when a place of business is so hard up on finding workers that they will rehire someone they just fired. Number 11, I went for a job interview that heavily promoted their Friday night team events. I said I have 2 little kids, so I'd have to skip most of those. They acted like I just took a blank on their desk. Wow. These are very interesting people. Number 12, extremely high pay for what is very simple, low effort jobs. Bonus points if they have a sign that says now hiring outside year round. This indicates that even with a high rate of pay, they can't keep good people on. Number 13, conveniently small amounts of Glassdoor reviews and all glowing. Company I used to work for was awful, and they had loads of one-star reviews with a lot of substance behind them. Conveniently enough, they've all gone recently to be replaced by a handful of 5-star ones. Number 14, when your supervisor and or coworkers act like they think you hung the moon and stars by the end of the first month. Number 15, if you get asked in interviews about how you deal with workplace conflict and how you get along with difficult personalities. If they're asking about how you deal with difficult customers, that's one thing. If they basically ask you how you handle a toxic work environment, it's going to be a toxic work environment. I very naively learned this the hard way. Number 16, being hired on the spot. Being hired on the spot, when they hire you on the spot and you have to start immediately, there's a reason that they're desperate to fill that spot. Nobody wants to be there. Number 17, if during the interview phase, you get calls or emails from people at the company outside of their regular work hours, then that's a sign that the company does not have good life and work balance. One company I ended up with working at initially reached out to me on a national holiday. I never, ever thought, why is this person working today? But in hindsight, I should have. And lastly, number 18, there are a lot of hindsight tips here. You won't know the hiring manager quit until you started. You won't always get to see common areas and group interactions if they're ushered into a conference room and meet with a lineup. Having worked at both a large investment bank and large tech company, both of which are considered industry leaders, both equally terrible to work for, here are the red flags that I could have spotted before I accepted from the interviews. Number 1, people talking about what opportunities the roles open up to you. It means the job itself is total trash and you will hate it, but you do it for what's after. For most, the next step doesn't happen before the burnout forces them out. Number 2, do your interviewers show up on time? Are they constantly checking their phones? Do they end immediately on time, even if the next person isn't ready? This shows a few things, like how tight and busy are people. It's good to be busy, but not so busy that you can't take 30 minutes to meet with someone. It also shows where the priorities lie in terms of new talent acquisition. Number 3, ask people what they do for fun and how often they engage in those activities. Look for answers that show lack of energy or time on the weekends. This will obviously vary by people and their personal interest. But if you ask all the interviewers the same question, you can look for trends. And then 4, ask people where they see their careers in 3 to 5 years. This can be a good indicator of how quickly they feel they can move up and how much development is in the role. It's important to understand how the companies promote as well. Look for answers that show people have the time and ability to think about growing in the future. At the tech company, a lot of people said, I'm not sure, I haven't thought about it, which in hindsight should have been an indicator that they didn't have time or the tools to develop themselves. Now, these are not hard rules, but they are always exceptions. But regardless, look for leading indicators of a bad situation. So this is this week's tip of the week. Please pay attention to the 18 red flags you should be looking out for when interviewing. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. It was interesting, this particular post that I put out, and I put it up on LinkedIn, got a lot of different responses from different people. Also, people added their own little comments of red flags that they had. So just when I saw this a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. You know, it's not our typical tip of the week, but it's nice to hear from other people what red flags people may see out there. So thank you very much. All right, today for lunch, hopefully some of you will come and want to join us. We're gonna go to Mama's Pizza, 2130 West Parker Road. It's on Parker, about a half block west from Custard. They have a pizza buffet. They've got pasta. They've got a nice big salad bar, and everybody's favorite, the hot cinnamon rolls. Everybody keeps an eye on for when the new tray of hot cinnamon rolls come out, and then they all attack that tray at one time. So if you'd like to, if you're in the DFW area, please come join us for lunch. It's a great way to meet those of us who are here. We get to find out more about who you are, what you do, and maybe how we can help you. So, you know, come join us in person. We really, really appreciate it. All right, coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about the one-page bio with Mina Brown. But I want to talk about upcoming sessions. Next Friday on the 16th, we're going to talk about taxes 2022, what you need to know with Susan Holly. Susan Holly is a senior tax advisor with Block Associates, used to be H&R Block, but it's Block Associates. Susan's always the last speaker we have every year. We've had her 11 or 12 years now. She's going to sum up some things that you may want to think about as a job seeker, things you can deduct, things you can't deduct, any recent changes in the tax law she'll talk about for this year. So that's actually going to be our last meeting of the year. And then on Friday, 12/23, the Friday before Christmas, the Friday before New Year's, and the first Friday in January, we are not going to have meetings. We'll pick back up on the 13th. Oh, Friday the 3rd, January, Friday the 13th, we'll be back and we'll have our first meeting. We'll do open forum on that Friday. All right, it's time for our main event. Mina Brown's been with us on a yearly basis. I didn't have a speaker lined up today, and I thought, you know, I went back and looked to see, and I went, I really think the one-page bio is an extremely important tool. It's something you need in your toolkit. Your one-page bio is what you need to be sending out anytime you're networking with somebody. Even when you're applying for a job, send that one-page bio out, because it doesn't, when you send out a resume, it says, help me, I'm looking for a job. When you send out a bio, it just tells people who you are, what you do, and how you can possibly help, and your successes from the past. So this is Mina's presentation from this summer. If you have any questions, we'll get those answered for you at the end of the presentation. So let me switch over and we will get started.
Can you see that?
We can. And there's the book, a great book.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, and this is a second edition because we did incorporate just a couple of years ago new developments in how to present yourself, and gave a lot more examples of things. But the main reason we wrote the book is that, as you guys probably have experienced, one of the first questions, talk about being ready for interviewing. And boy, I couldn't endorse that more. Do practice interviewing, practice. One of the questions you're going to get very routinely right at the beginning is, tell me about yourself. And so, as my colleague and I have worked with career transitions, and she was in the recruiting world too, and we just generally feel like people don't answer that very well. And so this kind of lays out a very simple formula for that. In the first half of the book is about, how do you answer the question, tell me about yourself? Very simple formula, 3 components. And it's just so important to be competent and brief in that. So that's the first half. The second half is about bios, because we're seeing more and more, we had a couple of LinkedIn profiles up there. With your LinkedIn profile and maybe if you have an individual web page, or if you have some other opportunity to offer your background, a bio is a really important tool. So we didn't feel like people did bios very well. I mean, we're very judgmental, aren't we? And so we decided we needed to offer an opportunity for people to kind of understand the importance and the use of bios, and also kind of how how to write one, and what are the important ingredients. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I feel like it's a little bit underserved. I love the 10, what are your 10, how to answer these 10 weaknesses. And I agree with Rosie, it's Rosina, right? I agree. Those answers were long, but the conceptual framework were in the right direction. So being prepared for that, being prepared for how to answer those questions, and going through those practice interviews, you will always get better at interviewing if you get some practice and get some coaching like they're offering. It's a fabulous tool. So let's talk a little bit about why do you need a bio? I mean, you've got a resume, you've got a LinkedIn profile, you've got, other ways to communicate. It is one of the most important, I think, for professionals, and certainly at higher levels. If you're a leader, if you're an executive or a senior manager or director or something, you really, really, really want to have a bio. And then I pulled a little quote to put in my notes here that I was going to share. And it's from a HubSpot article not too long ago. And it said, why good bios are important for a professional. And this is quoting from this article. How many people actually read bios anyway? Well, the answer is a lot. More importantly, though, there's no way to tell exactly who is reading it. You'll always want to be ready for when the right people come across it. And when they do, you want it to catch their eye in a good way. While your resume is only useful when you're actively applying for specific positions, your professional bio is much more visible. And I would add to that, useful in any aspect of your career. You can live on LinkedIn, your company's website, your guest blog, your speaker profiles, your Twitter bio, or any other place where you've got a profile. So anyway, that was just an article from HubSpot, and it really summarized, this is exactly why you need a bio. So it is your professional, personal marketing tool. So if you think about somebody who is selling a product, they'll often, and I see it, go to Overstock, and you can get a little tear sheet. They'll give you a little downloadable tear sheet with some specifications or a little more information. That's kind of like your professional bio. It's written in narrative. It's a prose for you to be able to tell your story. It's short, it's engaging, it's in sentence structure, it's not bullets, and it's not dense. It's kind of a free-form narrative prose. And it should be the kind of writing that entices people to get to know you. It's like these are little tiny tidbits about you, the most important little highlights. If you think about, it's like a written trailer for your career. So it serves the purpose of selling for yourself. It's your sales tool. We all know, and you've had workshops on, and one reason you're here in part is because of networking. We know networking is how you're mostly going to get your new job. I mean, I do say to my clients, you may, and I do have clients who have gotten a job by responding to posts online. But the vast majority of people are going to find a good job and certainly get interviews through people they know. So networking is really important. Well, guess what? One of the best tools, and I would advocate better than a resume, is to have a bio, to be able to share that in your networking process. And again, this is for your whole career, whether you're looking for a job or whether you're in a job and you're meeting new people. And I won't go off on a tear about networking, Jeff, I promise. But if you don't make networking part of your job forever, you are missing the boat. Even when you have a job, you need to be networking. When you don't have a job, you need to be networking. You need to network until you're not alive anymore, until you don't care about anybody. So your bio is a tool to use. So let's talk a little bit about some particular uses of a bio versus a resume. when you are in a job, and boy, we have seen this, the great resignation for the last year and a half. If you're in a job and you are in an unannounced job search, so you don't want to tell your boss, but I'm ready to get out of here. The best way to, the use of a bio in that situation is a great tool, because it's not, a resume just screams, in my mind, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job. So if you have a good, nicely done bio, it's a great tool to introduce yourself to people in your network, and it doesn't scream, I'm looking for a job. And it's a wonderful tool for other reasons, but in particular, it's good in an unannounced job search. It's also really valuable because it's written in prose. It's a narrative. Now, it's not a 5-page document. It's 1 page, 4 paragraphs at most, and it's usually in kind of an open, it's not crammed in little tiny font, no margins. It's written so it's very readable. So what you have an opportunity to do in the bio is connect the dots of your story. So you have a story to tell about why somebody would want to work with you, why you would be a great candidate to be in this particular role. And it can help you close in some of maybe the questions that might come up when somebody looks at a pure resume. You can blend in a bit of a narrative about that. And then it's really short, and you want to make it readable. You want to highlight the most important messages that you want the reader to know about you. They're just like the highlights of what you want the reader to remember. So you want to put very few details, but the juiciest details in your bio. Got a sore throat. I've had a sore throat. It's not COVID. I've tested 3 times. I think it's allergies. So look at the kind of the applications between a resume and a bio. And there are certainly the appropriate, as you know, if you're in a job search, you must have a well-designed resume. And there are lots of ways to get some good benchmarks about your resume and how to do it in today's world with virtual, everything virtual. You have a little more flexibility than you used to have when everything had to be printed and hand delivered or mailed. Those are back in the dinosaur days, doesn't it feel like it? And so in the resume world, the resume, as I said just a minute ago, I think it just says, I'm looking for a job when you hand somebody or send somebody or share your resume. In a bio, you can use it in anything in business. You can use it in your career internally to let people inside a company get to know you, networking again. And it's really a safer document to be able to share kind of out in the public domain. The resume provides those details, the relevant jobs, the facts, the history, your accomplishments, your credentials, and the chronology of your jobs and the companies you've worked with. So it has all of those back a number of years. It doesn't go back 30 years or 40 years. And the current, I think the current thinking is probably back about 10 years. But you don't need to put stuff that happened in 1975. I mean, that's not necessary. But in your bio, what you're doing is choosing the highlights of those characteristics, your outstanding accomplishments, just cherry picking just the best ones and putting those into your bio. And then in your bio, you can describe things in, like I said, in the narrative, in a prose. So you can put a bit of a spin on it. You can communicate things in a way that your resume gives you data. Your bio tells your story. Often the resume, and I talk to a lot of recruiters and a lot of human resource recruiters inside companies and externally. A lot of people don't read the resume word for word, top to bottom, front to back. Most resumes get, I don't know what the current stats are, several seconds. maybe 10 seconds. When a recruiter is looking at, 50 resumes, they're going to be glancing at resumes to see who are the companies, what are the key things. They're going to scan the pages. They'll look at maybe credentials and those things, but they're not going to necessarily read line for line. Now, some will, which is also why you want to be sure that it's well designed, well articulated, no typos and that kind of stuff. But mostly it's going to be scanned. And then the bio, though, is more likely to be read because it's open, it's prose, it's narrative, and it's easy to absorb that in a couple of paragraphs, 3 or 4 paragraphs, better than 2 or even 3 pages of detailed job-related data. So that's one advantage of a bio. The resume with the detail is essential when you're really getting down to the details of it. In the resume, it's usually 2 pages. I've seen more go a little bit longer, and I don't know if you've seen that, Jeff. They're going a little bit longer in part because you don't have to print them anymore. You don't have to worry about, hand delivering something so that it's only 2 pages. So, oops, I just messed that up. Sorry. Go back. I just hit my keyboard. But yeah, so it can be a little bit longer. And then also resumes today, if you've got some exemplary projects, if you are in marketing or if you're in investment banking or if you're in something where you want to add an addendum, you could do that as a separate page and attach it to your resume so you don't load up your resume with that stuff. So they can be a little bit longer these days, but they really are detail rich. And they're more dense, they're single space. Sometimes I see them that the margins are so tiny, it's like, no, don't do that. They need to be formatted so that there's a little air in the space, but they really are dense documents. A bio, on the other hand, is usually 1 page, and I really am pretty adamant about that. 1 simple page. If you need to go to 2 or 3 pages for a bio, you've just bored your reader. Your reader does not want to read 3 pages of your narrative. They will read 4 paragraphs. Easy, right? I've even used 1.5 or 1.25 spacing, so you've got some air between the lines. You use a little bit larger font. Now, some resumes I see a lot of resumes at 10-point font. I think in a bio, you can do something that looks more like a book. It could be 11. I probably wouldn't go to 12 unless you're using a particular kind of a font that is not as big. But it's 300 to 400 words max, just on 1 page. So it's very short, very easy to read. The resume is a job search tool, internally and externally. And the bio, as I've already said, is a multi-purpose document. Everybody should have a resume. Usually just executives and experienced professionals have bios. I would say that's another area that has definitely evolved. I think that most people really, particularly any kind of exempt worker, any salaried position, I would say it would be useful to have a bio. It is not limited to just executives. And I think, in fact, if you're an individual contributor, or if you're in technology, or you're in a variety of different jobs that wouldn't be considered executive, I think the bio is still, in some cases, I think even more important to be able to weave your story in the bio. And then finally, the resume really organizes your experience and your accomplishments kind of in a chronology and sequence, and there's that. The bio really allows you to present the most important information about yourself. And it has a little bit of that chronology, but it's mostly telling your story. So those are kind of 2 examples or comparison of one versus the other. So here's kind of what they look like, the difference. And obviously these are just like conceptual difference. On the resume, you've got your headline, you've got your positioning, paragraph, your keywords, your most recent job, all the way down to your credentials. And then underneath credentials is usually things like community service or awards or things like that. on your bio, it's just this one page, and it's positioned usually here. You notice what the key difference is, right? Is you normally would put your headshot on your bio. I mean, imagine they tell us all the time in LinkedIn, a LinkedIn profile with a picture is many times more likely to get traction and to be looked at than a profile without a headshot. So a bio is a similar kind of thing. It's more intimate, it's more personal. This is me. So there's a headshot. And by the way, have a professional headshot. Don't take something out in the backyard with, you know, your fence and weird stuff. Get a nice professional headshot. It doesn't cost that much. And no matter what you're doing, you need that for all of these different profiles that you might be using your headshot for. And I'd say then also update it at least every 5 years. I have a colleague who's been using the same headshot. I'll bet you it's 20 years old. And when I see her and I see the headshot, it's like, it's not even the same person. So at least get an updated headshot every few years so you look remote. I had to get a whole new set of headshots after I went with my COVID hair, because I had kind of reddish blonde hair before, and then I let it go white. So it's like, oop, need a headshot. And so your bio is just this one page, and it has 4 paragraphs, and we're going to talk through what goes in each of those paragraphs. Your positioning paragraph, your most recent or current job, the rest of your career in 1 paragraph, and then your credentials at the bottom. You'll also notice that your name and headline and some key words are right there at the top. So you can't miss them. They're like your headliner to make sure people know who you are and what you're all about. And then your contact information usually doesn't clutter the top. It's usually in a footer. And that's usually a better place to put that, as opposed to taking space around, taking space away from that top portion. So here's what I've seen. I read bios, I see them on websites, I see them with candidates all the time. And I know, and I don't have the be all and end all opinion about all bios, but I have several observations to share from my experience. And one is that when a bio is just kind of blah, 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 it's going to be boring. People probably wouldn't want to read it. If I did this, I had this job, I did that, I got this award, and it's just kind of data. Well, the whole point of doing a bio is to weave a narrative. So try to look at your bio as, how would you want somebody to describe you? How would you want somebody to introduce you? Not with all just the raw data. You would want them to give some flavor to it. And that's really a key difference in the bio versus the resume. A lot of bios I've seen that are just too long. Even single spaced, tight, small, dense, 2 pages, that's not a good bio. Keep it short and sweet. You want somebody to read this, not just scan it like they might your resume. You want them to read it. So don't get it too long. Be very judicious. I do find, and I think it was mentioned earlier, it's sometimes easier to use a lot of words to say something. It's just easier. It's harder to be concise because you have to really choose appropriate, meaningful words, just a few words. And so being concise sometimes is difficult. So work on how to be concise in delivering your messages, in interviewing, your bio, your resume, all of those things. Even in networking, be concise. And somebody asks something about you, don't go off on a 5-minute litany. And so not too long, not too detailed. Some are just too short. Now, we talk about in the book, and I have 3 main bios. I have my regular bio, actually I have 4. I have my regular bio, which is 1-page paragraphs, just like we've talked about. I have a medium, I'd say I have Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. I've got a medium-sized bio that can be used in a on a website or in the back of a program or something like that. And then I have a little short bio that is used as a speaker introduction or as just a little blip that kind of summarizes everything into probably 5 sentences. So you can have some longer ones, medium, shorter for different applications, but you don't want it to be uninformative. You mainly want to make crystal clear when you're writing it who your reader is and what's the most important information for your reader. And then some bios are just not focused. And this is the whole point of the, who is your reader? Who's your target audience? Who do you want to read about you and know what they would be interested in? If you're in a job search, you know what kind of a job you're looking for. And by the way, I won't go off on this tangent either. The biggest mistake people make in job search is they look too broadly. I have a chapter in one of my books called Jack of All Trades is Not a Job Title. You are not going to be a candidate for anything if you're focused too widely. You're not going to fit anybody's job. So you want to choose carefully where your focus is. You may have fewer opportunities, but they're going to be better fit, which means you're going to have a better success ratio. So let's talk about the basic structure. We've already said it was 1 page, a decent margin. An inch margin is a nice normal margin. You've got that little header at the top with your picture. So you've got the heading, give yourself a title or a tagline. So the title, if you are currently employed, it might say manager, technical support, and then maybe your company. If you're not employed, it would be a tagline, experienced technical support leader. So something like that, you'd have a tagline, which is what you want people to instantly, and we talk about what's the bucket that you belong in, what specific focused area do you belong? You need to tee that up on the second line right underneath your name. And then a couple of keywords. So if it's manager of technical support or experienced manager, experienced leader in technical support, then underneath you might put a couple of keywords that might have to do with some cutting edge technologies and a particular environment that you've worked in, or if you're network savvy, put a couple of those keywords. This is like that little catnip, a little bit of bait for somebody to then say, okay, that person is somebody I want to read more about. Your professional headshot, we've already talked about, and then 4 paragraphs. And we're going to go through each of those paragraphs. The first one is your positioning paragraph, and it's the narrative version of how you would answer. Tell me about yourself. It's basically your 3 factors. It's written in an interesting way. It doesn't need to be boring. Remember, don't make it boring. And then the second paragraph would either be your current job or your most recent job, and put in like 1 or 2 little tidbits of the most stunning wins that you've had or the thing you're most proud of. And then in that third paragraph, everything else. Now, you might, in the second paragraph, if your most recent job was not the one that you want to leverage, maybe there's a job just before that you really want to leverage, then you might mention this most recent job, but then write that second paragraph about the one that is really in your sweet spot. That can still be in your second paragraph. But in the third paragraph, it's throw everything else, put it all in a big summary, and you can actually write it. We'll give you a couple of examples. And then the last paragraph is your credentials. And it's where'd you go to school, what kind of degree, what kind of, or maybe you're in a technical area. So what are you a project manager or PMP? Are you, have you gotten training in certain languages or stuff like that? So that would go in that 4th paragraph. It's your credentialing paragraph. And then, as I said earlier, you put your contact information in the footer. So here's what goes in the first paragraph, which is the most important. We know that the most important thing is going to come first. We just know that from basic grammar in 6th grade. The topic sentence of a paragraph is the first sentence. Usually it could be the last sentence, but it's usually the first sentence. So your prose version of your personal introduction. Now and I've done with Jeff before, and he mentions the B sharp. The first half of B sharp is all about how to introduce yourself. And it is something you should really drill and really have that honed, because that's what goes into this first paragraph. But it's free-flowing narrative. It's interesting. So it's who you are. Like, I am an executive coach and career transitions consultant. That's who I am. That's my essence factor. Guru factor. What do you know? And what I mean by that, because I could spend the rest of the time on that, because I think guru factor is the hardest one for most people to really get their hands on, really sink their teeth into. But it's what do you know that is a leverage point that is better, different, more a selling point that's maybe your unique sales proposition. How are you a little better, a little different, what do you know that differentiates you from all your competitors? So for me, as an executive coach, there are very few of my colleagues who have the 20+ years of corporate leadership, working at the board level, came from finance and operations in the aerospace business. There are very few executive coaches who have that kind of business experience, in addition to 25 years in executive coaching and a master certified coach. So that just tells you how old I am. That's why I have the white hair. So the guru factor is what do you know? So I might say I am one of those unusual coaches who has 20+ years of experience in corporate leadership and aerospace. That might be my guru factor, because it's different from what other coaches know. A lot of other coaches know, and I'd call it the secret sauce. And then the third paragraph, or the third factor, is something that's unique, that sets you apart. And this is something that normally does not. My dog may bark, so I apologize. It sets you apart from the standpoint of I'd call them the softer skills, or the things that don't necessarily just come out of the resume, unless you find some unique ways to put it in your positioning paragraph in your resume. But it's about how you operate, who you are, either as a person, a professional, a manager, a leader. And if you are in that kind of a place where you can say, oh, I'm so sorry, Jeff, my dogs are going to bark. I think they're doing work outside. I apologize. This is the world of virtual today, right? We all have dogs and grounds, people mowing. So anyway, forgive me. So in that star factor, I might say, and I do in my resume, is that I'm going to throw something at her. There we go. I just threw a pencil. I didn't hurt her. I might say something like, I have a unique, I have a particular intuition about my clients, and I'm just darn fun to work with. So that wouldn't show up in a resume, but I think it's part of my brand. And I'm sure you've talked about your brand and the things that you want to sell about how you are special. So I would say, I have great intuition, or I might say recognized as a good communicator, provides great feedback. And then I say, and I'm just plain fun to work with. So that's your three factors in a zip, 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 zip. And that goes in your first paragraph. The first sentence, your essence sentence, is what I started with. And it has to say who you are. And it's not who you were. It's not your history. It's not all the 15 jobs you might have had in the past. It is who you are right now. If you think about yourself as a product, this is what you are selling. You are selling this product. Somebody with this knowledge, this experience, this personality. This is what I'm selling you today, because we all know getting a job is a sales. Not everybody loves sales, or we would have been in sales, right? But you are selling yourself. And so you have to pretty boldly say, this is what you're buying. And so I gave you an example here of one of our sentences. So Andrew is a business savvy human resources manager with extensive background in compensation, benefits, and training. So it's a simple factual statement that you can say, this is the bucket, this is who he is, this is the category he goes in. And then the balance of that paragraph should be written like I was describing, you know, what I know differently, what makes me a good competitor in this area, and then what sets me apart. So that first paragraph, boy, the most important is your positioning paragraph. So I'm trying to, you help me stay on time, Jeff, okay? So the second paragraph is your most recent or current job. So it would be something like, currently as the manager of human resources at ABC company, Anton is responsible for, or he leads the team that handles comp and benefits for the global employee base or whatever. So it's a description of what his current job is. And then you can add a little, you know, something really juicy, some, in 2021, he received the Outstanding Employee of the Year award for his innovative comp plan. You know, just a sentence, because you're giving them catnip. I like to think about that as catnip. I want to entice them to read more about myself or this person. So you want to describe a little bit about the nature of the business. If your business is, let's say American Airlines, you don't need to describe American Airlines. We all know what that is, but you may have to describe a little bit about the function. If it's a huge company, what is a division, a role, a function, a unit within a giant company? You may need to describe that. But in general, if it's a household name, you just pop that in there and keep going. Remember, words are premium. And then the last thing you want to include in that second paragraph are those really cool accomplishments. You cherry pick just the one or two out of your resume, because you've already done that research. Cherry pick the one or two that's going to be the most pow for the person reading it. Remember, you always write to your audience. So what would they care about? Do they care about if you're a good organizer? Do they care about the breadth of the technology you know? Do they care about whatever? So know what they are going to make most important to them, and choose one of those accomplishments that fits what they are looking for. Remember, you're sell. Yeah, Jeff?
Well, Meredith asked a question in the chat.
Thank
If you're
you.
writing about yourself, is it in present or past tense?
Oh, I love this question. And boy, I'll tell you, I've been all over the map a little bit on it. If you are in your resume and your bio, it is in the first paragraph is present tense. And then obviously in your history and those other things, it's past tense. The other question I often get is, do you use first person or third person? So do I write it as I'm speaking, I am this, I've done that? Or do you write it in third person, which is Mina did this, Mina did that? And so those two questions really come up a lot. And that first person, third person, I think is the biggest tension. So I may not have answered your question quite right. And thank you, Jeff, because I'm not looking at the chat. I'm going to let you monitor that. So appreciate it. But here's my take on the third person, first person debate, because I think that's really been an interesting one that's developed over the last few years. A number of years ago, I would say absolutely third person. You know, Ms. Brown did this, Mina did that. Mina is this, whatever. So you put it in third person. I still believe the bio should be written in third person. It is written as if someone is describing you. Someone is telling somebody else about you. So write it in third person. The difference that I've come to in, I'd say even 4 or 5 years ago, I changed my approach to this based on quite a bit of research actually, is that in your LinkedIn profile, make that first person. Make that intimate, make it friendly, make that first person in that profile right underneath your name, which is going to say, it would say Mina Brown is an executive coach, blah, 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 blah. No, I would say I am an experienced executive coach. And I think that the switch there over the last several years is that in LinkedIn, we are explicitly wanting people to get to know us, to network with us, to connect with us. And that profile is your way to speak directly to them. So I believe in your profiles on your LinkedIn, and I would add, probably even on your Twitter profile if you have one, your Facebook profile if you have it, LinkedIn profile, any other social media profile, Instagram, put it as if you're speaking to the other person. So put it in first person. But I'd say for the formal bio, because you don't know how it's going to be used and you want to use it in networking, you want to write that in third person. So I think that's a really important, recognizing who your audience is and how you're addressing your audience. Yeah, thank you. So that's a second paragraph. And believe me or not, you can get it in the second paragraph. It takes some good constructing, some good architecture, get people to help you knock out things that aren't the most important, pick just the cool ones. And then the third paragraph is where everybody goes, oh, no way, I can't put everything in the third paragraph. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So in the third paragraph, it is just like, take everything that you have done, pick out the 1 or 2 pieces that are the highlights, particularly if you've worked for a name brand, I'd call it company, a well-recognized company. If you've had an experience of being the representative for at the UN, or I mean, anything that's like gonna is really gonna get somebody's attention, that goes in that third paragraph if it's not in the second. So you wanna highlight. You might just say, and in mine, it might say previous, before becoming an executive coach, Mina was an executive in corporate jobs, in aerospace finance, and blah, blah, blah. That's it. I mean, that's all I would have to say in that third paragraph. I might, and then I think at some point, because I did work for Price Waterhouse, I think, and most people know who Price Waterhouse Coopers is. I think somewhere down the road, I put in, she began her career with Price Waterhouse. So little name dropping there, just little things that are going to catch somebody's attention. So you highlight that, but you just need broad brush. Take everything you've done in prior to the most recent job and lump it into a short summary of everything else. And you can get some, and make sure that what you put there is aligned to your reader. Remember, your reader, your objective. What do you want them to know about you? And then the last sentence is often just like a simple statement, like I just said. You can either refer to yourself in like Brown, like Mina Brown does, and then when you refer later, you can say Brown. Or I've gotten a little more relaxed about saying Mina started her career with Price Waterhouse. So I think that first name is a little friendlier, and I think it's less stilted because I don't talk about myself as Brown, I'm Mina. So I think that would be the way to kind of use it in that third person in your bio. And then the last paragraph is your credentialing paragraph. So this is where you don't need to put a whole lot of credentials up above. Don't spend your precious few words and space in the first 2 or 3 paragraphs talking about your degrees, unless it is extraordinary, that you were at Oxford and led by, just leave it for your credentialing paragraph, because readers know to look there. They expect to see it there. So that's where you want it to be. And in the credentialing, you would start with college degrees if you have them, and start with the highest level college degree. Don't start with your bachelor's, then your master's, or your associate's degree and then your bachelor's. Start with the highest level that you've accomplished. and just put, you can put 2 or 3 in one sentence. You can say, mine says, Mina received her MBA from Vanderbilt University, her BBA in accounting from Eastern Kentucky University, and attended blah, blah, blah. So just a simple sentence, and maybe you can put and majored in or specialized in or had additional training in, any kind of that educational credential goes first. And then you can be careful. One little thing here, common shorthand designations are fine. So don't worry about spelling out. Again, this is precious space. So MBA, BBA, any of that is fine, but be careful if you've got something that's a little more obscure. My sister has a master's in music. So it's like, and I put that as an example. So it would be an MM. Yeah, but then there's also Master of Mathematics and Master of Ministry and Master of Management and there's all sorts of MMs. So you just wouldn't use an MM, you would use the name of it so that you're not confusing people. Now, in context, it might not be confusing, but still it would be important. And maybe from the school, it might not be confusing, but just be aware that if you have that kind of those letters, you want to be sure it's understandable. And then this is also where you include any of your other certifications, awards, publications, languages especially. We're in a multicultural world. If you have multiple languages, even if you have some that are fluent, others that are workable or passable, include those and indicate fluent in Spanish, familiar with Portuguese. So put those in there because that's a really important thing. And then if you have community activities, and I'm sure you've talked about this in terms of the resume as well, I'm very selective about community activities. You want it to, and especially on a bio, again, this is precious real estate, remember. If it is something where you have been the president of the Chamber of Commerce for 4 years, or whatever, if you've been in a leadership role, or if you have been a national representative for XYZ charitable organization, that would be a good place to put that. But if it is not something noteworthy that's important to communicate, leave that for the resume. Don't put it in your bio. You want your bio to really be, all of the juicy stuff, and anything that's distracting just takes away from the rest of your message. And so I'm going to just show, and I'm going to stop here in a second and take some questions if there are some. But here's just, this is one of those world's worth slides, right? You can't read it because it's way too little itty bitty, but I just wanted you to see a sample of the way a bio might look. You'd have the picture on the left. Now, here's one little tip too. Which direction is your headshot facing? If your headshot is facing like this guy over his left shoulder, then you want to put it to the left and put your name and your title and all of that on the right. Now, if your headshot is facing the other direction, just flip it. You don't want your headshot facing outside the page. You want it facing inside the page. So I know that's a tiny little thing. And if it's straight on, you just get to decide. My colleague, Paula, who's co-author, she just hates pictures that are straight on. I personally love them because you can use them a whole lot. Yeah, Jeff?
Paula will actually be with us in 2 weeks to talk about headshots. So,
oh, great. Oh, great.
Yeah, so your partner in crime will be here shortly.
Oh, good. Oh, my God. She and I have some fun conversations about it because I do like squared shoulders, but boy, those are tricky. And it honestly, and I do agree with her, unless you really get that right, I do agree that it, turned one way or the other is usually more professional and more flattering. So on your bio, whichever direction you're facing, put your picture where you're facing into the document, and then put your title and name and all on the other side. So that's what it looks like. So the first paragraph is the juicy one. That's the positioning paragraph. The second one is, and you can't read this, but I'll just share a little bit. It says, currently as corporate controller and corporate officer for American Corporation, a publicly held global manufacturer and distributor of specialty metals, John, first person, John manages all financial operations worldwide, including financial aspects of the M&A initiatives. Now, I would probably even edit that down a little bit more today. I would probably shorten that as best I could. I'm also a big fan of look for any conjunctions. If you have a lot of and or ors or any kind of, try to keep your sentences under 2 lines. Try to shorten them. If a sentence is too long, break it into 2 sentences. Keep it short and sweet. This is supposed to be readable, really easy readable. So that is what it looks like. So here's a caution, and this is true on all resumes as well as bios. So this is just a fundamental, I think, foundational premise that, and again, other people have lots of different points of view about this. But I think in today's multicultural world, you want to be very careful and judicious about putting faith-based or political organizations anywhere near your profile, your bio, your anywhere on your LinkedIn or resume or anywhere. With this exception, if you are applying for a job with the Southern Baptist Convention, then you really need to put that in there. That's about the job. You want to put things like that about accomplishments and different pieces. But if you're not, or political organization, if you're applying for a job on a campaign, then you probably need to put some of that on your resume and in your bio and sprinkle it everywhere if you want. But unless that is really relevant for the job you're aiming for and for the target audience, just leave it off. People, we all have biases, whether they're conscious or unconscious, but we all have to be judicious about just leave that stuff out of the workplace unless it is relevant. And then I'm also, and I get pushed back on this, and I acknowledge that. I think interests and hobbies and that kind of stuff on a bio doesn't belong there. I think it's okay if you've accomplished something. If you were on the national team, equestrian team, hell yes, put that in there. But if you just enjoy golf and movies, we don't need to hear that. So unless it's an accomplishment, leave that stuff off of the bio. And I would say leave it off the resume. Now, I would tell you that I've started adding it on some little like profiles where my short speaker bio, not my medium-sized speaker bio, I have added in Mina enjoys something, because if it's a speaker application or some application where that kind of soft, kind of personal interest has an audience, then that really is okay. But be judicious about that. Most people just don't want to know that you love reading or you know, I love watching serial movies. I mean, no, let's not put that in the bio. And then I would also be very circumspect. Again, it's not a ban, but I'd be circumspect about things like your marital status. And then I have, you know, Mina's been married, has 2 kids and a grandchild and 4 dogs and blah. That doesn't belong there. I mean, just leave that stuff out. If somebody asks you in passing, great. But again, who's your audience and what's going to make it different for them? What's going to entice them to talk to you? And whether you're married or not, I don't believe that belongs there. I believe you open up a door that is unnecessary. It is inappropriate. I mean, it makes people think, okay, would that person relocate? Is that person this? And it's like, are they going to have work-life balance issues? Please just leave that stuff off. It's not that important. I think it can be detrimental. So I'm going to pause here, Jeff. And do we have any questions that we've got about five more minutes.
Yeah, well, we're really not constrained with time, but yeah, we have a question. Hold on.
Hey, Mina, it's Ann Bradstreet. I have a question. Where
Hi,
does the
Ann. Oh, hi, Ann. I know you.
Yes, you do. So where does the bio go? Does it go on your LinkedIn? Do you attach it to the resume when you're applying for a job? Where does the bio
Oh,
actually?
and that is a perfect question. Here's the thing. When you're networking, where does it go? When you're networking, let's say you've gone to a meeting or you've had a luncheon or somebody's introduced you, like you'll get an email where I sent an introductory email to you and Henry. And I would say when you're doing the kind of introductions and you're meeting somebody maybe for the first time, or you're interested in getting in the door, your lead document is your bio. So lead with your bio. And so if I want to introduce you, I would say, and I wouldn't do it for you, I would give you the opportunity. Like if I said, Ann, I'd like for you to meet Henry, I'll leave it to you to connect. And then you follow up by saying, hi, Henry, I really appreciate the invitation or the introduction, Mina. Henry, when would you be available for a quick phone call? I've attached my bio to give you a little more information about myself. That's it, just your bio. Don't send your resume. If somebody asks for your resume, and that's often what's going to happen, send both. Send your bio and your resume. Again, they're going to read the bio. Higher probability they're going to read the bio and not necessarily read, but scan the resume. So I'd send both. So it's a wonderful networking, it's introductions, it's to give people a little more background about you. Bios are used a lot in marketing to go like on the back of a marketing. If you're going to look for some contract work or you're going to look for some short-term gigs, that bio is a great marketing tool. And then all of these virtual, the social media profiles. Oh, good Lord, there's so many social media profiles. So I think the bio works perfectly, way better than any other tool in filling in that little population underneath, like on LinkedIn, it's profile. And I'd convert it to first person. I'd introduce it with something a little catchier and to say, nobody knows such and such like Ann does. And then like I do or something. So you want to go first person. And so you'd put it anywhere where you have a virtual social media profile. And then if you give any kind of presentations and I'd say for people who are looking for jobs, especially if you would be open to a contract gig, get some little speaking gigs or offer to be on a panel. Get yourself out there just as a subject matter quasi-expert on something, and that can help. You'd use the bio and all of that. Does that answer your question, Ann?
Yes, thank you. Great. Anybody else questioning here, or we'll go online? Anybody online? If you have a question, please unmute your mic and you may ask away. Question. I know there's a comment Russ put in the comment box. I'm looking forward to making one of these one-page bios. I really need to get an updated headshot though.
And Jeff has resources. Paula will talk about it in a couple of weeks. Paula and I both use a gal by the name of Leanne Baker, and she does a phenomenal job, and she's very affordable. And there's 100 other ways to but don't get a profile. I mean, don't go get a passport photo and think that's going to pass. No, it's not. But you don't have to spend a huge amount of money, but you can get some nice, and then Leanne will do a touch up. She'll give you a nice background, and she just does a fabulous job, but you definitely need a nice headshot. All right, so
I was at a conference up in Chicago when I was speaking in March. And one of the things they had, there were headshots for all these people. There were like 4,000 people there. And so the lines were constant. They were getting headshots. But all the headshots were facing, if you put them on a LinkedIn profile, you'd be facing off the page. So the second day I talked to him in the morning, I said, you're really doing this backwards, because if these people put these pictures on LinkedIn, they're going to, if you don't know how to flip the picture using an art program, they're all going to be facing off. So they started taking pictures in the morning the correct what? Well, what I think is the correct way.
I totally
By
agree.
afternoon, they had flipped back around the other way. Again.
Oh, what is wrong with it? No, you are 100% right. Face into the page. And I'm fanatical about that. Yeah, I see some hands going up.
Yep, here we go.
So I have a question about the bio. So for resumes, you kind of target your resume to the job that you are applying for. Should you have multiple one-page bios kind of highlighting different pieces of yourself if you have done 5 or 6 different things?
Yeah, and I know I probably have a different philosophy about resumes than some people does. I would say if you don't have a clear focus for exactly the job you're good at and that you are aiming for, you're probably going to be back in that jack of all trades kind of category. So you really want to be focused. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't tweak 2 or 3 words or a sentence or a couple of things on your resume for the right job and customize it to the right job. I just say don't get carried away with that. And on the bio, of course, you could do that a little bit, but my theory is that you are who you are. People, you want to really represent who you are in the best prose you can. And it's not very detailed. So it's unlikely that your prose version, starting with your positioning paragraph down, is not going to change much. Now, what could change are just those little headlines, those little tag words. You might decide for a certain job to highlight a particular technology or skill or attribute that you wouldn't target for every other job. So I would say you could comfortably customize your tagline or your keywords, but I just don't, my theory is I don't think you're going to change who you are that much. So I doubt that your bio, you don't need 15 versions of your bio. What would you really change? So I would be very circumspect, and I would also try to keep it so interesting and clever that you can use it in multi-purpose. You still can send a different resume and tweak a little resume here and there. That bio is who you are. It's your story, and it's just not going to change. Any other questions? I want to go to this last slide, and I don't want us to run out of time. Yeah.
So FYI, and a lot of people know this, Foster Williams and Mark and Trevor, who do the Who You Know show, when they have Foster's meeting on every other Tuesday at Stonebriar Community Church, they do headshots and they do a great job, and it's free.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, and to Jeff's point of view, if you can get a couple of headshots aiming in different directions, having a couple of good headshots on file, depending on how you're going to use it, might be useful. But I do struggle with, honestly, and I don't know what Paul is going to say, if you take my picture and flip it around 180 degrees horizontally, I don't look the same. None of our eyes are at the same level. Our ears are in different places. My head is weird. And if you flip my picture around, I don't look like the same person. So you got to be really careful about doing that. So if you get a good headshot, just say, could I get one facing this way and one facing this way? Great. They normally will. People are pretty generous, I think, doing that kind of thing. But that's great to know.
Any other questions online? Anybody want to unmute your mic? All right. Well, I guess Paula, go ahead with your slide.
Okay.
And time-wise, we're fine. So, I mean, we don't have to be done right at 11. I mean,
okay.
We're good.
All right. So I just wanted to cover the last little bit. Bios, and more bios. The foundation bio is what I was talking about. Let me back up. That foundation bio is that example of the one that I just showed you. In fact, let me just go back. Yeah, that one. That's the foundation bio. You must write that and get that well honed before you can launch off into the octopus of all the other bios. That is a derivative of this. So get this one done, really get proud of it, make sure it's cool, it's attractive, and I like to use really acknowledge language that's not too stilted. And I've come pretty far away over the last several years of not being too formal and not being too prissy. I like to put things that are somebody would like to read, that you can use a little sense of humor, make it really interesting, because they will remember. If I say, and she's just plain fun to work with, people are going to remember some of those things. So be light, be interesting and captivating. And so don't be too stilted about it. But then once you get your foundation bio, it is the source for all sorts of bios that can be derivatives of that. So that's your foundation. Now you can do things like, there we go. An executive profile, that might be something that goes on. It might be something that goes on a website. It might be an internal page where you fill in a profile on an internal website. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you might need an executive profile. Similarly, you've got that, we've talked about the LinkedIn profile. Spend some time to make that really unique. I don't know what the number of characters or words are, but there is a limit on the number of words for your LinkedIn profile. So that's why you have to be judicious about using every little character to make it sing your song. And then a website bio, if you've got a website, or if you're doing contracting work, or if you're an employee and you're on somebody's website, or you create your own website. If you're I do think if you're open to doing some contracting work or doing a consulting gig or something like that, create that. Very simple. You can go to Wix, there's all these easy ways to create your own website that has a little more cool information. You need a bio on your website. Business proposals, if you're going to do a business proposal when you're employed, or even when you're unemployed and you're willing to say, hey, listen, Sarah, I'd be happy to come in and do an engagement analysis for you. Would that be helpful? And then you'd need it for your proposal. So you need it either in the cover letter or in the document. If you're going to be on a board, you'd need a board bio, and they're very different. Not very, they're a little different. The credentials section in a board bio is much bigger than a regular bio. You might need a little PowerPoint bio, and that would be literally a few bullets. Because if you're doing, let's say you're doing a presentation with a team, and you and 3 other people need to throw a slide up with your background, you need 4 bullets that'll go on a slide. So you might need to pull those key words off of your bio to create a PowerPoint bio. You might have a podium introduction like I was describing. I have a medium and a small, the mama bear and the baby bear bio for somebody to introduce me, because you want them to tell your story the way you want your story told, right? You don't want them just pulling something out of nowhere and telling your story. You may be in a seminar, you may be a panelist, you may be a presenter, a workshop. And I would say, please look for those opportunities. Don't be afraid of getting up and saying, listen, I'm pretty nervous being a presenter, but I just really want to share what I know in this area. And people are so willing to support you if you just say, give me a little grace. And then the service business bio. I think a service business bio is it's a profile and some testimonials. It's a little bit of a blend, because remember, your bio is a marketing document. So let me show you a couple of my examples. On the left is my LinkedIn profile. And Jeff, I've changed that picture, by the way, since I put this up, because it's aiming in the wrong direction. I was like, no, I saw that about, I don't know, a year ago. And it's like, okay, I got to change that picture. I think Paula may have brought it to my attention. So that is different today, but that's kind of your LinkedIn profile. And then look right down below, it says about. So that's where you put your about message. And and I think I've updated that too. Mine just says, my clients are primarily business executives and professionals who want to up their leadership game, change their professional game, can't even read it, or reinvent their lives. So that's my opening sentence. Now I've updated that, I think, since. I think keep things dynamic, keep it fresh. When you think of something new that you can say about yourself, pop it in there, make it interesting. And then on the right-hand side, so the left-hand side is my LinkedIn profile, my LinkedIn page. I need to update this slide because I didn't see that last night. And then on the right-hand side is what I would say, that's my service business bio, because you'll see over on the right hand in the bottom right corner. Now mine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mine's 6 paragraphs. So I violated my rule, but it is all based on the foundation bio. It is a derivative of my foundation bio. And then at the top, I put my headliners. So I'm saying extensive coaching experience, proven leadership experience, intuition, keen observations and candor, popular speaker, and outstanding sense of humor. Those are my little bullets at the top. And then I have my headliner at the top. So that's an example of, and then on the left-hand side in those 4 boxes are testimonials from clients who just say, oh my goodness, she walks on water, that kind of thing. So that's what you want to put. If it's a service business, people want to hear that confirmation that from other people that this is somebody I endorse. So I really like having testimonials on the service business kind of a bio. So wrapping it up, as Jeff mentioned, the book on the left is the Be Sharp, which has, and the subtitle is Tell Me About Yourself in Great Introductions and Professional Bios. And then the book on the right, called Be Smart, is a series of about 60 essays where we present, here's some common conventional advice, and then we take a counter position. So here's what some people might say, and this is what we say. So it's a series of essays broken out between introductions. I think I've just got a page. I don't need to go through this. So that's the second edition of that. And then Be Smart, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories is about career planning, marketing, visibility, which is networking, interviewing, which is sales, and then how to talk about money. We never know how to talk about money. And that's one of the trickiest things on a screening interview and the ending interview and all of that. So those are the different books. And there's my contact information if you would like to reach out. And I told Jeff when we first started, I'm happy to have this recorded. So you're going to make this available on your Facebook page. Where else?
It'll be there and on the Career USA YouTube channel.
Wonderful. So
Well, Mina, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Are you open to LinkedIn connections if people send you a personal note?
Yes.
Okay, so
But now I have a rule about LinkedIn connections. If I don't know you, I reject it. If you write me a note explaining how I should or could know you, then I will consider it. So I'm open to that, but I don't. If you just send me a generic one, I won't do it. I delete it immediately.
and I do the exact same thing. Well, Mina, thank you very much for your time.
Good
Great
luck to
information today. I hope
everybody.
everybody enjoys this. All right, that has been his presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's just really, I always think it's great information. She's very high energy with what she does. Let me stop sharing here. Here we go. Anybody have any questions or comments that we can answer for you before we end the session today? Questions? Like I said, I highly recommend that Be Sharp book. I think it's one of the 3 or 4 books that you need to have in your job search, that you need to have in your library, because the first half of the book talks about how you describe yourself to other people and the best way to do that. And then the second half of the book, especially the second edition, you want to make sure you get the second edition, it's got like 30 different bios that are listed there and what to do in a lot more detail. And really some really great examples. You can get the book on Amazon. It's like 17, 18 bucks. And I know you can get it on Amazon Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, I think you can actually get it. I've heard at one point it was free on the download for a Kindle. So just as a possibility. So any other comments or questions before we move on? Going once, going twice. All right, let me share a couple things. We'll get out of here. So next week, our speaker is going to talk all about taxes 2022, what you need to know with Susan Holly. She's a senior tax consultant, a senior tax advisor. She can represent you in front of the IRS if you're ever to be audited. She's been in the business for, I think, 30 years. She's been with us for the last 10 years, sort of being our last speaker of the year. It's, she'll share what you need to know, things you need to think about over the next couple of weeks to get prepared for your taxes. If you have not put your 30-second reductions into the chat window, please do so. Please let me know you're with us, especially those on Facebook. If you want to put your your contact information in the comment field, that'll get you on the roster. It'll get you the email that I'm going to put out this afternoon. And I will go and delete your personal information off of Facebook as soon as the session is over. All right, Career FW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Join us next week. Next Tuesday, we have a couple special guest speakers for LinkedIn Tuesdays. Instead of hearing from one of our standard 4 speakers, you're going to hear from DB, I don't know how do you pronounce your last name, Winky, DB Winky. So she'll be presenting how to uncover the hidden job market using LinkedIn. So special speaker, she'll be with us next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Next Wednesday, avoiding interview crashes for interviewing Wednesdays. This is actually session 13 of the 13-part workshop. You know, Mark and Walt, no matter how well you practice, no matter how often you get ready to do things, these are common mistakes that people still make, even no matter how much you practice. So we'll talk about those next Wednesday. And then next Thursday, being the 3rd Thursday of the month, we're going to talk all about effective resumes. Our special guest speaker is Mitch Jacobs. He worked at Jewish Family Services in the Career Center for over 30 years. He'll be with us. He's retired from JFS, and he'll be with us to talk about resumes and what he has seen. So please join us next week for some great speakers. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career FW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, be sure to click on playlist. And then down at the very bottom, pick whatever list you want. And then at the very bottom, where it says view full playlist, where you see that red arrow, click there and up will come a list of all the different dates and topics. You can go back and watch any of these that you like. Please note that any of them from the North Dallas group, you probably want to go in about 30 minutes to where the speaker does start speaking. This presentation probably won't be up till maybe 4 or 5 this afternoon. I've got an afternoon errand I have to run, so it'll be a few hours before I get this one up, but it will be back up later this afternoon. Hopefully, for those of you who are homebound, come join us for some pizza or pasta or salad bar and the best hot cinnamon rolls you're going to have. So come join us at Mama's Pizza. We'll be there today at 11:45. Please come join us on Parker, just west of Custer. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend. I know it's going to be a wet one here in the DFW area tomorrow, but everybody else have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.